This is Nick.
This is Jack.
Welcome back. It is Monday, September 29th, and today's pod is the best one yet. This is a T-Boy.
The top 3 pop business news stories you need to know today.
Welcome back to everyone's favorite business show. Jack, the stories are so good today. What do you say we just hit the pod?
For our first story, Death & Co. is the bar that started the craft cocktail trend 20 years ago, and today they run 50 bars worldwide.
But now Death & Co. is launching hotels, and if you help fund them, they'll name a cocktail after you.
For our second story, everyone says that Apple is in a slump. The stock has been flat this year. They've lost their iMojo.
But we think Apple can make a surprise move to become the ultimate American brand. Acquire Harley-Davidson. No, just kidding. Acquire Intel.
Very interesting story, Nick. And our third and final story. Last quarter, Costco ran an experiment. Would you pay extra to shop at Costco when it's less crowded?
Because every young Costco member said yes, so we're calling it the Early DINK Special.
But Yetis, before we hit that wonderful mix of stories.
Fantastic mix of stories to kick off the week, Jack.
Have you ever walked into the bathroom, done your business, and then reached for the TP?
And then you have to wait?
Because before you get the toilet paper, you must watch an advertisement.
No TP until you finish the commercial? What's going on?
This has never happened to me, but do they at least give you the skip this ad in 5 seconds button?
Besties, it's bizarre, but for some public bathrooms over in China, the toilet paper is now ad-supported.
True story, and it's actually even worse than it sounds. Because first, you must scan a QR code with your phone, and then you have to watch the commercial.
And then, 30 seconds after all that, does a door finally open, revealing the TP.
And not a whole roll, just 3 sheets of TP, to be precise.
Only 3 squares to spare, Jack.
And if the barbacoa from last night's really bothering you, then you need more toilet paper, Nick.
Oh, then you're gonna have to watch more ads, my friend.
This sounds like a Black Mirror episode, but in the form of an Onion post on Instagram.
Apparently, Jack, the only thing standing between you and buttoning those pants back up
is watching a 30-second Jeep commercial.
Although, yes, you can pay to skip like a Netflix ad-supported tier.
And I guess you can always BYO toilet paper, right?
But in theory, besties, we got to admit, you know what? Ad-supported toilet paper, it makes sense.
Someone going to the bathroom is the definition of a captive audience.
I mean, Jack, at no point in your life are you more captive than when you are sitting on a toilet. Hopefully.
So probably they could force you to watch 50 commercials per TP.
So that's from the business perspective, but from an ethical perspective, what are we thinking, man?
We hate this. Feels like a crime against humanity.
I'm sorry, Jack. Can't you spare a square?
Sorry, Nick. I can't spare a square.
There's no square to spare. Yetis, let's hit our 3 stories.
15 years before this song, 2 boys from the Northeast met in the dorm. They had an idea that caused a cultural storm. It's the best one yet, but the best is the norm. Jack, Nick, that's it. I don't even think they need to practice. 50%, that's a fat tip. T-Boy City on your at list. If you know, you know, cause we ready to go. We can't wait no more, so just start the show. Start the show.
For our first story, Death & Co. is the East Village bar in New York that started the craft cocktail movement, and now they're pivoting to hotels.
But Death & Co. is doing something surprising. The hotel chain they're launching has no brand.
0 brand. Yetis, if you were hanging out in downtown New York circa 2010 to 2015 like we were in the East Village, Jack, what was the trend you noticed?
The city didn't run on Dunkin'. It ran on expensive craft cocktails I could not afford.
We're talking 8 ingredients in a drink, 15 minutes to make, and minimum $34 for that puppy.
The kind of cocktail that you wake up the next morning, you're like, I can't believe I ordered 3 cocktails. Why did I offer to pay for that round?
I'm sorry, Jack, did he just crack a raw duck egg into that thing?
Dude, I have had like raw egg white cocktails. I don't know how those are sanitary.
Full disclosure, Eddie. Jack and I have both been to Death & Co. after waiting hours in line to get in. It is the impressive date night spot of the East Village when we were living there.
We can vouch the cocktail menu is longer than Moby Dick.
I ordered a Sazerac there once, Jack, and the list of ingredients had its own bibliography. It was like a Supreme Court ruling.
Picture this, Yetis. A mustachioed bartender dressed as a 19th century chemist.
Okay, my martini is garnished with a gooseberry. I don't even know what that is, but I will try it.
So, this bar on East 6th Street in New York City, near Tompkins Square Park, started the craft cocktail trend back in 2007.
It wasn't started by business guys, MBAs, or anyone with a business plan. It was founded by 2 art students who had no idea what they were doing, but they did know what they were doing.
Because they anticipated the millennial trend of craft everything that was about to come.
Well, 2 decades later, Death & Co. has now opened 50 bars worldwide. It's one of the most successful chains of bars in the world.
If you've been to a boutique hotel with an intimate bar with great lighting that made you feel like James Bond meets Wes Anderson, these guys designed that bar.
But here's the news. Now the Death & Co. guys are launching their own hotel chain.
2 craft mixologists with no experience outside of the bar are taking on Ritz-Carlton, Nick.
They're trying to make the Four Seasons of old fashions out there.
And it actually makes sense. They understand hospitality. They have opened 50 bars in other hotels before.
And Death & Co. owns 4 bars here in America today that are doing $14 million in revenue.
But they just did an interview on CNN that surprised us. They decided to fund the construction of their dozen hotels that they want to build. They're turning down venture capital money and asking the customers to fund it instead.
That's right. As they go from martini to motel, they want the customers to pay for the expansion. And honestly, it's the biggest crowdsourcing we've ever seen.
You used to imbibe at Death & Co. Now you can invest in Death & Co. And get perks if you do invest.
Okay, get this. What happens if you invest $5,000 in the new Death & Co. hotel, Jack?
10% off drinks at any Death & Co. forever.
What about $50,000 investment?
A cocktail named after you at that hotel bar for 1 year.
The Jack Teeny, I'll take 2. What about a $500,000, $500,000 investment in Death & Co.'s hotel?
You'll be listed as a co-founder of that hotel. You'll get 25% off everything for life for you and your family. You'll get a cocktail named after you, a permanent private table you can use.
And you basically get to pick the next city that they expand to.
No, you do. You get to steer where your money's going, like Detroit, for example.
But besties, before you choke on that sprig of rosemary in your drink, the biggest surprise here isn't the custom Negronis. It's the name of Death & Co.'s first hotel. So Jack, what's the takeaway for our buddies over at Death & Co.?
Death & Co. is pioneering an anti-brand brand.
Now, Yetis, when Jack and I first heard that the creator of the craft cocktail movement was opening a hotel chain, we were intrigued.
But our surprise was that the biggest name in cocktails is not going to use their name for the hotel chain.
Because get this, none of the new Death & Co. hotels or bars in those hotels will be called Death & Co.
Instead, each of the new hotels will have its own unique name, unlike all the other ones.
That is a totally different strategy than the other boutique chains out there, like the W, the Standard, or the Ace.
Death & Co. wants each of their locations to have an authentic name relevant to that hotel's story.
Yeah, like their first one is going to be the Municipal Grand Hotel because it's in a building in Savannah, Georgia. It used to be a municipal building.
Each location will have a totally different name, different style. You'll have no idea this is part of a train.
And that's the risky but clever move here. You see, despite the brand equity of Death & Co., they are prioritizing individuality and authenticity instead.
I like it. I'd love to think that my hotel is one of a kind.
You're just trying to get a cocktail named after you right now. Besties, add it up, and Death & Co. is pioneering a new thing, the anti-brand brand. For our second story, Apple is in talks to follow NVIDIA and the United States of America's lead by investing in Intel.
We'll do you one more. Apple should acquire Intel and finally become a made-in-America company.
Now, Yetis, the biggest stock market surprise of this year, it isn't Build-A-Bear, although that toy stock has surged, as we told you last week. Build-A-Bear.
The biggest stock surprise of this year is boring old Intel. The flailing chip maker is up 76% this year.
Intel, it's like the Labubu doll of the tech industry these days.
First, because the US government became a big shareholder, now owning 10% of the company. And then,
because NVIDIA bought 4% of the company.
Intel inside?
Yeah.
Intel's got insiders.
But in the last week, Intel's chip stock has jumped another 20% because of one big surprise.
Apple. Here's the report from Bloomberg. Intel approached Apple about making an investment into America's biggest chip maker.
Now, besties, to sprinkle on some context here, Apple and Intel, they actually go way back, don't they, Jack? They got a history.
From 2006 to 2020, Intel was the chip that was inside Macs and MacBooks.
But then Apple broke up with Intel because their chips just weren't cutting it. Now Apple does its own cooking and designs its own chips.
But Apple's problem today isn't chips. Its problem today is China and India. and the fact that no iPhones are made in the United States.
Which leads not to the news, but to our bold statement for all the Intel workers out there. Here's what we're thinking. Apple shouldn't just invest in Intel. Apple should buy Intel.
Yetis. Intel is now Trump's company after his administration bought 10% of the stock.
But if Apple acquired Intel, then Apple could become Trump's company too.
Apple acquiring Intel could get Apple out of the White House doghouse.
After all, Jack, in order to please Trump, Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, did pledge that he would invest $600 billion in American manufacturing.
Instead of doing that, which sounds like a lot of work, they could just acquire Intel, which would cost far less, probably $200 billion or so.
$200 billion, that's like Tim Cook's budget for the landscaping bill at Apple headquarters these days.
Apple's valuation moves $200 billion in one day sometimes. This acquisition would not be that big a deal.
That's what Zuck spends on a few AI talents over the weekend. Easy.
And if Apple did it, it might stop getting all the tariff threats every day.
What's the worst that could happen with a deal like this? Apple wastes $200 billion.
But what's the best that could happen with Apple acquiring Intel? Apple becomes Captain America.
And gets its iMojo back. So Jack, what's the takeaway for our buddies over at Apple?
Apple could reverse the script on designed in California, made in China.
Yetis, those 6 words, they're on the back of basically every Apple device, and they sum up the modern American economy. We design it, but China makes it.
We design it, China makes it has been extraordinarily lucrative for shareholders of Apple, and it's given Americans low-priced iPhones.
But that arrangement has also given us massive inequality, economic anxiety, and the new trade war.
With Apple helping guide R&D, maybe Intel could return to being a great tech company.
For national security, America needs a chip champion, and Apple could raise that champion.
And for Apple, it could go from China and India outsourcer to U.S. manufacturing leader.
Now, yeah, Apple would still make their iPhones abroad, right, Jack? But if the chips were made in the USA, that'd be a huge change.
It would earn Apple major political brownie points. It could boost Apple's brand perception here in the States, and it might even be a profitable move too.
Besties buying Intel. That could begin to reverse the script on the 6 words that have defined Apple's success for 2 decades.
Designed in California, but made in China.
Hey Yetis, if you're a bestie, take a sec and hit that subscribe button.
And like this video while you're at it. If you leave a comment, by the way, we'll read it.
For our third and final story, last quarter, Costco ran a very interesting experiment. Would you pay extra money to shop at Costco when it's less crowded?
And because every young Costco member said, hell yeah, I would,
enthusiastically,
we're calling it the early DINK special.
Now, besties, before we begin the story, a quick update. We still don't know if the Costco-Nike collab sneaker shoe is real, right, Jack?
Well, since neither company has confirmed it, I think it's not real.
Yeah, but we do know that Costco just did $86 billion in sales last quarter. Jackie, sprinkle on some context, please.
That's almost enough to acquire Nike, like the whole company. Amazon calls itself the everything store. Costco is the anything store.
So let's dive into those earnings, because sales rose 8% last quarter to that $86 billion. But Jack, where was the growth at Costco interestingly coming from?
Youths.
The youths. The CEO of Costco highlighted young people 3 times in the earnings call, we noticed.
He pointed out that the average age of a Costco member has come down significantly. And today, half of new members are under the age of 40.
But besties, here's what Jack and I found fascinating about this story. Costco pulled off a timing experiment last quarter.
They basically tested out an early bird special and wondered how people would react.
We're calling it the early DINK special because Costco executive members can now get special access to the stores before they open at 9 a.m.
From 9 to 10 a.m., executive members can shop at Costco without the, not to be crude here, riffraff of regular old Costco members like me. Now, I am a regular member. And Nick, when I shop there, I have to tell my family to stay near me and be safe. Their shopping carts are everywhere. They're huge. You have to look both ways before you cross an aisle.
Jack's a people pleaser, so he does not like confrontation in aisle 6, right? Jack does not want to toss elbows for a 12-pack of Kirkland tequila.
Honestly, dude, it's become such an ordeal shopping there that we actually use Instacart now. They let me get my Costco discount, and it's not an expensive fee at all to do delivery.
Which has led, Jack, to this early DINK special. How did Costco's experiment go when they offered this opportunity?
People liked the idea so much, Costco saw a 9% jump in membership upgrades to the executive tier.
And now, besties, remember this. The membership fees at Costco are pretty much where Costco makes all their profits every quarter.
Yeah, everything they sell in the store, they sell it at close to break-even prices.
Therefore, the 9% jump in membership upgrades for this service of early bird special, it resulted in an equally sized jump in the profits.
So it appears young people like me upgraded their Costco membership to executive so they could shop there when it's less crowded.
Plus, Costco added an extra open hour on Saturdays to all their members as well.
And spoiler, that hour is now packed Saturday nights.
Probably gonna upgrade your membership. Jack, what's the takeaway for our buddies over at Costco?
There's a bigger trend here, and we call it clubification.
Clubification. Yetis, it's not just Costco where people are willing to pay a premium these days to get exclusive treatment.
It's a trend we've been talking about for a couple of years now. Clubification across America, across many different industries.
For example, the Amex fee. It's gone up to $895. That credit card is basically a shopping club now with exclusive lounge access.
In New York City, there's been a huge rise in members-only clubs. There's the Chief Club, the Kith Club, more Soho houses, more Casa Ciprianis.
In fitness, Jack, country clubs are booming, surf clubs are now a thing, and the pickleball clubs, whoa, get in line if you want to get in. Besties, the rise in demand for exclusivity, it began during the pandemic, but back then, it was for safety concerns.
And it's only accelerated since. More people want to be with fewer people and are willing to pay for it.
That's clubification. Jack, could you whip up the takeaways for us to kick off the week?
Death & Co. started the craft cocktail trend, and now they're launching a hotel chain.
But it's the first hotel chain with no name. They're pioneering the anti-brand brand.
For our second story, Apple shouldn't just invest in Intel. We think they should acquire the company and rescue America's only major chip maker.
That would begin to reverse those 6 words we've all seen. Designed in California, but made in China.
And our third and final story. Costco is now open from 9 to 10 a.m. just for executive card holders, which led to a surge in membership upgrades.
This is the clubification of America. People are paying more to be with fewer people.
But Yetis, this pod's not over yet. Here's what else you need to know today.
First, the big news that Wall Street is watching this week, it's the government shutdown.
The government must pass a new funding bill before October begins. So the government funding deadline is midnight Tuesday night.
And here are the two sides. The Democrats are demanding a restoration of the $1 trillion Medicaid spending that was cut by Trump's big, beautiful bill.
Republicans are threatening that if the government shuts down, they'll fire a whole bunch of federal workers.
Wall Street will be watching. And second, the hottest new investing trend abroad is K-pop bands.
Korean pop bands were already publicly traded entities on the Korean stock market, interestingly.
We found a couple of them. But now smaller K-pop bands are getting venture capital funding and they're making bank.
And it all may be thanks to Netflix's K-pop Demon Hunter that a lot of our Yetis and besties love.
Fueling a K-pop bubble like butter. And finally, Hershey just won its biggest lawsuit in years, the false Halloween advertising lawsuit.
Last year, an angry trick-or-treater sued Hershey's for misleading them on the packaging of a bag of Halloween candy.
Okay, apparently the package looked like a pumpkin-shaped chocolate, but the reality was like the chocolate just looked like a circle, not a pumpkin, which is kind of true.
The judge rules that Hershey's did not violate name, image, and sweetness rules.
Yeah, apparently the pumpkin-shaped ball was actually close enough to a pumpkin.
The circle was close enough to a pumpkin that the judge thinks it wasn't misleading.
It's a roundup situation.
I don't know about that, but I'm not a judge apparently.
Now time for the best fact yet. This one sent in by Smokey Bear because this is the last day to vote for Fat Bear Week.
Fat Bear Week, a competition to see who is the fattest looking bear in America's national parks.
Tomorrow is the last day to vote in the most important election of our lifetimes, and it's basically a body positive competition, right, Jack? We'll put a link in the episode description for you.
But here's a fun fact about bears. The reason they're so fat is that they're preparing for hibernation, which begins in October.
That's right. For the next 5 to 7 months, bears will not eat, drink, urinate, or defecate for that hibernation period.
How their bodies are able to just sit in that status quo for 5 to 7 months, that's a story for another pod.
Oh, yeah, bear hibernation. In corporate America, this is called a quiet quitting, by the way.
In academics, it's called a sabbatical.
Yetis, you look fantastic today. And Jack, what do you think? What should we ask the Yetis in the poll today on Spotify? What should we go with today?
How about, should Nick join Costco? I mean, obviously the answer is yes. So if you agree, give us a specific reason. Nick is persuadable on this.
I mean, you know I have nothing against Costco. Huge respect for Costco. But Jack, I am saving my membership money for another lover.
Oh, God.
I'm waiting for an Erewhon membership because I'm just a sucker for smoothies.
Nick also has huge pantries, but for some reason they're not full.
You know, when you grow up in New York, you don't grow up with a pantry, Jack. So, like, the pantry we have now, I feel like it's spoiling. I'm not comfortable with it.
Sounds like you've worked that through with your therapist, Nick.
Yeah, in the process. Yetis, you look fantastic. Remember to tap to follow us to get us every single day. And Jack and I will see you tomorrow. And before we go, a congratulations to legendary Yetis Dirk and Emily, who got married over the weekend in lovely Park City, Utah.
Happy 60th birthday to Dr. David Kohler in Jacksonville, Florida.
And a happy birthday to Yeti Pratu Ramkumar, who's celebrating the big one over in Mumbai, India.
And happy 30th birthday to Ashley Andreo in New York City.
And Alicia Wren is celebrating the best birthday yet down in Fremont, California.
And a happy 9th birthday to Evie in West Dundee, Illinois.
And Jack, you better jump on the Metro North because Tate Bridges is turning 21 years old over in Palisades, New York. Congratulations, Tate. Upstate.
Oh, upstate.
Upstate.
Dude, I can see the Palisades from Manhattan. It's not upstate.
Pretty far north, Jack.
And to anyone else who's celebrating something today, make it a T-boy.
You can't take a subway there.
Celebrate the wins. This is Jack. I own stock of Amazon, Intel, Netflix, and Instacart. And Nick and I both own stock in Apple.